So, hello, my name is Benjamin, and in my speech I'll be discussing how government surveillance infringes on the civil liberties and privacy of the American people. According to an online resource found on Statistica.com, there are 2 billion smartphone users worldwide, and of those 2 billion, 135 million currently live in the United States of America. The welfare of technology is ever so emphasized with its perks of practicality and easy accessibility. However, we are often blindsided by the impairment it inflicts towards the security and privacy of the users behind such devices. Government surveillance has increased significantly since the 9/11 terrorist attacks, with its main priority focused on preventing future international and domestic terrorist attacks from occurring. With reference to Edward Snowden's document leaks published on WikiLeaks, classified documents leaked on WikiLeaks, the general public can no longer plead ignorance in not knowing the severity of government surveillance. As a result of the documents leaked by Edward Snowden, the National Security Agency, or NSA for short, has been found guilty by the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in conducting warrantless searches that were used to gather personal information, including location, activity, and communications of United States citizens that had connection to some of the world's most prominent telecommunication networks, companies, including Yahoo, Facebook, AOL, AT&T, Verizon, and many more. So that was my first claim. My first claim was that government surveillance is conducted unknowingly through the use of technology. And my second claim is that government surveillance infringes the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. In an article published by the New York Times, it was noted that President George W. Bush actually enacted an act called the Patriot Act, which was used, its main intent was used to provide evidence towards unanswered questions drawn by the 9/11 terrorist attacks, also in preventing future terrorist attacks. However, the Patriot Act was deemed a failure as it failed to provide such evidence. But what this act did accomplish was gathering the personal information of citizens, although they had no direct connection to potential terrorist attacks. So there are 3 laws that allow government spying. The first 2 include the ECPH and Title 3. ECPH is abbreviated for Electronic Communications Privacy Act. Both Title 3 and ECPH make up the regulation for government wiretapping. The third one is FISA, which is the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which governs eavesdropping on agents of foreign powers within the United States. Bush administration was not authorized to conduct these searches based on any of these 3 laws. So my third claim is that government surveillance contradicts with the freedom of speech and also with freedom of press. So freedom of speech and privacy, they go hand in hand. So if the public knows the severity of government surveillance, they're more often to practice self-censorship. This restricts people from speaking their own opinions truthfully with fear that the government is watching them. I know for a fact when I'm texting my friends, I'm always a little cautious when I use the word bomb or anything around that area. But yeah, that's sort of unnecessary fear. Thirdly, Edward Snowden is being extradited by the U.S. government for allegedly divulging government secrets in regards to government surveillance. Many would consider his actions to fall in line with being a whistleblower. However, the U.S. government sees Edward Snowden as a threat. Edward Snowden is partially being convicted for using his freedom of speech, also with his freedom of press. in informing the United States population of corruption behind closed doors of the U.S. government.
All right, Benjamin, the proposition is identified, but you do start off by talking about the way you phrase it is you've got that word how in there. That makes it a question instead of a declarative statement. So it's not how government surveillance is impinging on our rights. It's government surveillance is impinging on our rights. So you want to avoid using that terminology. This is a declarative statement. It's an argument. Take a position. It's not an informative speech. There's no preview of what the supporting structure is going to be. And in fact, I think you realized after you got through your first point, oops, I didn't do any organizational material prior to getting involved in this. So that you did the best you could to correct it in those circumstances. And I thought that was a good attempt. You want to make sure that people understand. And then you were better as you went on trying to identify the claims as you went through them. There's a lot of factual data in the presentation, not always sourced, but I don't think there's a lot of dispute about some of the facts concerning, how many people are using cell phones, that there is government surveillance. You do, cite the New York Times to identify the Patriot Act and a few other laws that exist on this. But for example, there's a couple of claims that you make that are not the main supporting claims, but that they are minor claims, that the Patriot Act failed, that the press has been chilled in some way, and I don't get any data on those sorts of things, so that's a bit problematic. The Snowden issue, of course, is probably pretty well known. It establishes some controversy, but the outline of what it was that the NSA was doing that is so problematic is not very detailed here. We do know that the court ruled against them. That's another good piece of factual data, but we don't know what it was that they were doing in that kind of surveillance. It's not as if they were sticking listening devices in everybody's house or downloading everybody's email. What was it that they were doing? That's what you need to talk about a little bit, because that's the thing that you're saying is problematic. And kind of the way you described a couple of these situations makes it sound a little bit odd. Going the other direction, you seem to acknowledge at one point that the people that are being tracked are people who are associated with organizations that are known to be terrorist threats. And that doesn't sound like it works very well for your position on that. So I think what you need to do is suggest that these people could have had incidental contact with anybody who, they called and asked for an address or a phone number from some organization that has been affiliated with somebody who has got some terrorist ties, and that's how somebody gets identified in this kind of thing. Because the way you made it sound, it was like, people who have been known to be emailing terrorists are the ones being surveilled, and I'm going, yeah, I don't see a problem with that. I know that that's not what you meant, but that's the way it came across when you said it. So you got to be careful about that. All right, thank you.